Coming out about this whole NBA scandal and situation. The WNBA is at the front line of it all too, because they is connected to this league. Now, I am here to tell you, the FBI is letting it be known they want phone records, schedules, the whole shebang. Now, we know just a couple of days ago, it was reported that none other than Adam Silver had to meet with the committee to discuss this whole situation involving.
This crazy story is currently making news. The WNBA and the NBA appear to have been subpoenaed by the FBI. In other words, the FBI is now formally involved in professional basketball. We're talking about commissioners being asked to respond to some important inquiries. This is not a minor issue. Allegations and subpoenas for phone records are part of a federal inquiry that has the potential to rock both colleagues. This is not a rumor or gossip on social media. Several teams are being asked to provide records, timetables, and copious amounts of proof to federal officials. In a very short period of time, the sports world moved from nothing to quite serious. Please let me know in the comments before we get started. Do you believe that gambling scandals in professional sports are more frequent than we realize, or are they only getting started?
Federal indictments were announced involving current player Terry Rozier and current head coach Chauncey Billups. What was your initial reaction, and what have the last 36 hours been like for you?
My initial reaction was I was deeply disturbed. There's nothing more important to the league and its fans than the integrity of the competition. And so I had a pit in my stomach. It was very upsetting.
And Terry Rozier was allowed to keep playing after an NBA investigation ruled that there was no NBA rules violated. What do you make of that decision now amid the FBI's allegations against him?
So what happened was, because bets were placed through legalized legal betting companies, they picked up aberrational behavior around a particular game in March of 20.
Look, the NBA and, consequently, the WNBA are currently the subject of an official FBI investigation. This is no longer an internal league issue that can be handled discreetly behind closed doors with a few penalties or suspensions. Federal authorities are requesting phone records, schedules, paperwork, and possibly property from various teams. Inquiries are being made by congressional committees, and the Department of Justice is also interested. This is the most serious situation. What do we know for sure now? The NBA has reportedly been requesting data and property from many teams, with the Los Angeles Lakers in particular, according to several reports, including some breaking news from The Athletic mentioned. Why the Lakers? We'll discuss it later, but for now, it's important to recognize that this isn't just about one team. Numerous franchises are being looked into. The biggest name that has been leaked thus far is the Lakers. 2 Lakers employees have already given their cell phones to investigators as part of their cooperation. We are discussing Randy Mims, an executive administrator, and Mike Monchase, a team member. They voluntarily turned over their phones, which may indicate they have nothing to conceal or that their attorneys advised them to cooperate. In any case, federal investigators now have complete access to everything on their devices, including conversations, messages, and correspondence. So what specifically are they investigating? The main issue with sports betting is whether athletes, coaches, or staff were sharing insider information to help bettors profit. This goes far beyond just placing bets, which would be harmful enough on their own. We are talking about potential fraud conspiracies, using private and personal information for financial benefit, and potentially even manipulating games. These are federal offenses, not just a violation of the league.
Brought to our attention by the regulators and the betting companies. We then looked into that situation and were very transparent about it. And while there was that aberrational betting, we frankly couldn't find anything. Terry at the time cooperated. He gave the league office his phone. He sat down for an interview, and we ultimately concluded that there was insufficient evidence, despite that aberrational behavior, to move forward. We then worked directly with the law enforcement, as they said at the press conference, that the league has been cooperating, and so that was obviously over 2 years ago. So the federal government has subpoena power, can threaten to put people in jail, can do all kinds of things that a league office can't do. So we've been working with them since then. And of course, what they announced yesterday was an indictment. So 2.5 years later, he still hasn't been convicted of anything, in fairness to Terry. Obviously, it doesn't look good, but he's now been put on administrative leave. And so, there's a balance here of protecting people's rights and investigating. And as I said, we've been working with the government, and they have extraordinary powers that a league office doesn't have.
Thus, everything about this situation is just crazy.
Remember, the NBA, no subpoena powers. You don't have to talk to the NBA investigators or MLB Department of Investigations. When the federal government asks you a question, you have to answer. Now, you can invoke the Fifth Amendment, be my guest, enjoy, but they have the right to compel you to testify. There are grand juries who are seated to look at evidence in a way that the leagues don't do with their Department of Investigations. It's a totally different level of scrutiny. So Adam Silver, that's the least of his issues, to be asked by people like you, hey, how stupid were you that you cleared Terry Rozier? That is not the question. The question is going forward. He'll answer it, but the question going forward is, what do we do to work better with the FBI, better with the gambling companies who are our partners, to give comfort to our customers, like you said in the first hour, comfort that the integrity has not dropped even an iota.
The investigation gained significant momentum following the filing of federal charges against a number of prominent figures in the NBA, including Terry Rozier, a guard for the Miami Heat, who was arrested and charged, and Shanta Billups, the head coach of the Portland Trail Blazers, who was also implicated. When coaches and active players are charged by federal authorities, the situation becomes extremely complex. However, what's even more intriguing is that congressional committees have been questioning the NBA about why the league knew something was going on, or at least knew about it, and neglected to notify the authorities in a proper manner. That is a significant concern. That might be a barrier, or at the absolute least a PR crisis that makes the league appears to be either complicit or utterly helpless. Because of their connection to LeBron James, the Lakers are still being specifically highlighted. Damon Jones, a former NBA player who also happens to know LeBron and has coached him in a number of capacities, is one of the people charged in this case. Currently, no one is accusing LeBron personally for anything improper, but federal authorities are collecting data from 10 or more Lakers staffers as a result of these connections. If you have a buddy who is the subject of a federal investigation, authorities are curious about your knowledge. And as soon as you become aware of it, some people are even speculating that this is the cause on the internet. Lately, LeBron hasn't played in many games. Maybe he's dealing with behind-the-scenes legal issues. Or maybe his lawyers advised him to keep a low profile. Or maybe he's just managing a common injury, and all of this is merely coincidental. However, the speculation just writes itself when there are federal investigations into gaming that surround your business and the people you are being billed. Since the WNBA is undoubtedly impacted by this as well, let's now talk about their viewpoint. The WNBA's parent organization is the NBA. They have organizational, administrative, and financial linkages. You can guarantee the FBI will investigate into the WNBA next if they are looking into gambling and insider information sharing in the NBA. It seems sense to conclude the larger league's inquiry and then start looking into the WNBA right away. This season, the WNBA has seen its own controversies. There have been allegations of bias and favoritism, dubious officiating, and dubious calls that altered game results. Fans have been quite vocal about things not appearing right, but nothing has been verified. If federal authorities begin examining whether team members or referees were exchanging information with gambling, the WNBA may encounter some thorough investigation. The league is smaller, which might make it illegal conduct that is both easier to coordinate and more challenging to detect. Why this investigation is crucial: the significance of the personal data element. According to federal allegations, people were actually using insider information to help bettors win money. What kind of information? Think of injury reports that have not yet been made public, strategies and tactics, or even athletes who are dealing with personal issues that might affect their performance. This information is very helpful to gamblers, regardless of whether the coach plans to rest every starting. Furthermore, if members of these organizations share doing so for financial benefit is a federal offense. Another aspect of this inquiry that raises serious concerns is referees. The integrity of the entire sport would be totally destroyed if referees were involved in information sharing or, worse, influencing games to favor particular betting results. It has previously occurred in other leagues. The most well-known example is NBA player Tim Donaghy. He was an NBA referee who placed bets on games he officiated and made decisions that had an impact on point spreads. For that, he was sent to a federal jail. It would be disastrous if something comparable were to occur right now. It appears that the NBA has been attempting to prevent this by contacting clubs via their legal departments and asking paperwork before they are legally demanded by the FBI. That is undoubtedly a wise legal move. It exhibits cooperation, transparency, and an attempt to manage the narrative, but it also strongly implies that the league is aware of the problem and is working to minimize the harm. Unless there is a very significant issue, you don't get a lawyer and start requesting internal documents from 10 different team members. All of this is suspect in terms of time. The general manager and head coach of the Dallas Wings were recently sacked. Other teams have made abrupt staff moves that at the time seemed strange. Did those actions have anything to do with this investigation? Were organizations severing connections with individuals they suspected of engaging in illicit gambling? We are not sure yet, but the timing certainly begs the issue. The fact that this story only surfaced a few hours ago and is already generating headlines worldwide is truly crazy. Major sports networks, the New York Post, and social media are all popping with conjecture. This is not going to be a low-key scandal that goes away. For weeks, if not months, this will dominate sports news. Federal inquiries proceed methodically and slowly. Every text message, email, and phone record will be scrutinized. Everyone who is associated with someone who is suspected will be questioned. This comes at a really bad moment for the WNBA in particular. The league is currently negotiating a CBA. That have become stagnant. Although attendance and viewership increased dramatically last year, which is fantastic, players are unsure if there will even be a game, and financial stability remains a key concern. Add to all of that a government probe into gambling. For a league that was at last starting to get some momentum, this is a nightmare. There will be some extremely challenging questions for Commissioner Cathy Engelbert to respond to. The WNBA's reputation would suffer greatly if the FBI found evidence of gambling corruption, even on a minor scale. Fans must think that the competition is genuine, that games are authentic, and that results aren't planned or manipulated. If that rebuilding damaged confidence takes years, the examination by Congress is especially worrisome. It is no longer merely a legal issue when elected officials begin convening hearings over sports leagues' failure to report criminal activity. It becomes a political problem. Accountability and transparency become crucial. The NBA generates billions of dollars in income and has a significant cultural impact. Congress wants to know why such a strong league wasn't taking more action to stop or expose illicit gaming operations. Some are defending the league by arguing that they are unable to keep an eye on every employee's private communications or stop every bad actor. To some extent, that is accurate. However, when current players and coaches are being charged by federal prosecutors, when the FBI subpoenas information from several teams, it indicates a systematic issue rather than simply a few isolated institutions, and congressional committees are requesting answers. Everyone interested in professional basketball should be concerned when the term comprehensive federal investigation keeps coming up in stories. Being thorough entails examining every group, department, and individual who may have had access to important data. It indicates that neither a single person nor a single organization is the focus of this. It indicates that investigators think the issue is pervasive. This is extremely aggravating for coaches and players who had nothing to do with any unlawful gambling. Their reputations are being examined simply by association. Fans are now questioning every choice they made on the court and speculating about whether or not games were rigged. Everyone is under suspicion until the inquiry is finished and the results are made public, even if they are totally innocent. Particularly, the WNBA players are likely becoming increasingly concerned as this develops. They are already lobbying for increased respect for their rights, greater compensation, and improved working conditions. They now have to worry about whether the WNBA's financial health and reputation will be further harmed by federal gambling investigations. Although it's unfair to them, that's the reality of working for a company that is subject to federal inspection. Reactions on social media have been predictable. Some individuals are telling jokes. Some people are speculating about which coaches or players knew what. Some people really worry about professional basketball's future. There is a lot of conjecture in the comment sections regarding LeBron, whether certain games were rigged, and which other teams may be involved next. As additional information becomes available, the already chaotic situation will only worsen. Although it wasn't specifically related to the gambling inquiry, Sophie Cunningham made an intriguing remark that came up during conversations about this. She discussed how people naturally think that athletes who compete fiercely on the court are like that off the court. Fans should come to know the athletes as individuals, not only athletes. It's a valid point that is really pertinent at the moment. A person is not necessarily at blame just because they are connected to a question. Just because inquiries are being asked by federal officials does not prove that every participant did. There's a problem. However, the issue with federal investigations is that they overlook subtleties and public opinion. They are concentrating on gathering evidence and bringing criminal accusations. They will be prosecuted regardless of whether they violated the law. Encourage them based on their popularity or number of followers. As a result, both the legal system and elite athletes are vulnerable to it. The upcoming weeks will be very crucial. The NBA, the WNBA commissioners will most likely need to discuss the probe in public. As documents are subpoenaed and phone records are examined, more names will likely be disclosed. Since they genuinely have no other option, teams will continue to comply with authorities and lawyer up. Fans will also keep speculating and debating the implications of all of this for professional basketball's future. That is the current status of the FBI's investigation into professional basketball gambling. Federal authorities take matters seriously. The NBA and WNBA are under intense examination, and several teams are implicated.